Ladies and gentlemen, when this gets posted, we are officially 2 days away from kickoff. I just can't tell you how excited I am, Brandon. I'm just a ball full of excitement. It's something I've been building up for months. I even went on a local sports radio show to explain why, hey, the XFL is there for you. And football's over. Everybody's upset about it. The XFL is right there for you. So let's get into the XFL report. Some news around the league before I break down week 1 for you. The Houston Roughnecks have named P.J. Walker from the University of Temple as their quarterback. You might have known from my first XFL Xpert report, he had 10,000 yards and 74 touchdowns at Temple, and he will be joined up with June Jones, who is known as the offensive innovator in the college game, and we'll talk more about that when we break down week 1. The next bit of news from around the league, Panthers tight end Greg Olsen will join the Fox XFL broadcast for week 1. He's going to be entering free agency here in March. He's not going to be re-signing with the Panthers, so I'm assuming this might be his approach to life outside of football. So if he can't really get a deal that he likes, maybe he could be like, hey,
An interview per se.
Yeah, the audition. And I feel like so much of his career he's been so much like Jason Witten, and this would just add to the mythos if he does this. But I think that's cool because he did tweet at someone. Someone tweeted, "Football is over," and he goes, "Have you not heard of XFL on Fox?" So he's already doing a good job getting it out there. I'm actually interested in how this is going to go. He will be doing the Vipers Guardians game, so he'll be calling my favorite team, which you don't have a team yet, neither does Paul. Whatever. And the final big news from around the league: DraftKings and the XFL have announced a partnership for fantasy. As we mentioned last week, ESPN is not interested in doing fantasy with the XFL yet. I understand the move. I think it's let's see how this first season goes, and then we'll go from there. Because I mean, maybe with the new rules, it might be harder to do their PPR or do however they want to do it. I don't know, but
yeah, especially with I wonder if you try to do fantasy, you wouldn't be able to have very many teams in a fantasy league because there's not very many teams in the league.
Right. So your player pool is going to be smaller.
Very small comparatively. Yeah. So you'd have to figure that out too, I think.
Yeah, I could see that.
4 or 6 teams at the most, maybe for a fantasy league.
And I think that DraftKings. The reason why the DraftKings pairings make sense is because DraftKings is based more. It's first of all, it's a weekly thing.
Yeah, daily, and so you can all of you can have the same players. I believe.
And I think they have a little bit more leeway with prop bets and things like that. So here's the official statement from DraftKings. Quote, the XFL is an innovative fan-first league, and DraftKings shares a mutual commitment to delivering top-notch gaming experience to sports fans across the board. We are confident that through the collaborative partnership, our highly engaged customer base will enjoy betting on the XFL and playing in XFL daily fantasy sports contests. We look forward to the start of the season this Saturday, end quote. I actually downloaded the DraftKings app because I did not have it, and I've looked into it, and there are a lot of open, there's, if I remember correctly, there is an XFL tab, and there are already a lot of different games and prop bets you can do. So I think it's a good pairing, and I think it makes sense because it's such a new league and there's so many different rules and so many other things you have to incorporate in there. I think it's the start of a good thing. I think it's only DraftKings. I might have saw something on FanDuel, but yeah. So if you want to do any sort of fantasy, you got to do it through DraftKings. And I've never done it. Have you done any of DraftKings?
No.
I have friends that do it, and they're like addicted because you can get in like $3 leagues.
Yeah.
$2. Like you can get in 25 cents. You can get in like a quarter leagues and win a bunch of money there. I'm sure Paul will be excited about that because he's our resident gambler. Which sadly there will be no Paul's Fab 5 this week because Paul's gone. I mean, we could make our own Fab 5, but I'm gonna do a Fab 4 betting on all these XFL games. So here's your week 1, shuffling the papers, preview for the XFL. On Saturday, the first game of the season, we have the Seattle Dragons at the DC Defenders. DC is -6.5 in this one. The Defenders are being led by Cardale Jones, and a very talented backfield, including Nick Brissett, Khalil Abdullah, Donald Humphrey. That's a weird name. And Jarrell Presley. So they're pretty stacked backfield, and they're being led by Jim Harbaugh disciple Pep Hamilton. And that's going to be a lot for the Dragons to handle, and they're going to have, of course, legendary to the Redskins and the Seahawks, Jim Zorn. He'll be taking over. And Brandon Silvers, made popular from the Memphis Express, he'll be the quarterback of that team, but I just don't see Seattle hanging very long with DC because I think DC just has a bigger talent base, I guess. They have better, I won't say better players, but just more talented players. So if I were a betting man, I would take the DC Defenders. They're 6.5. I could win by a touchdown. I'd take that. How are they going to do lines in the XFL now that I think about it, now that they have 3-point extra points?
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be the same, just the scores will be a lot different.
Yeah, it's going to
see a lot of wacky scores sometimes.
It's going to be weird. You know, this is how big of a nerd I am for this league already. I was watching the Super Bowl. It was 20-10. And I was like, and Kansas City had the ball. And this is how I was that guy. I was like, well, if this were the XFL, the Chiefs could score a touchdown and go for an extra point from the 10-yard line and only be down a point. It could be 20-19. And then Ashley said, nobody cares, you nerd. Rightfully so. But if I were a betting man, I'd probably take the DC Defenders -6.5. I feel like they could win that. All right, now the second game on Saturday, the LA Wildcats taking on the Houston Roughnecks. After a great preseason, LA moved to make Josh Johnson their starting quarterback and traded Luis Perez. I made a mistake here. Luis Perez played for Birmingham. Yeah, okay, so I had the quarterbacks right. Luis Perez from AAF fame. He got traded to the New York Guardians. So imagine that. You're a starting quarterback in the AAF. You think you're going to be a starting quarterback in the XFL, and then they trade you. I feel bad for him.
Poor guy. He didn't even get to play.
Yeah. Well, he didn't look that great in practice. Shipped him off to New York. Which, again, I don't know which would be worse, living in L.A. versus living in New York. I don't know. Lost my train of thought here. Where was I at? No. But Johnson will have running back Larry Rose and wide receiver Nelson Spruce, who also played in the AAF and kind of played. He played in some in the NFL, also played in the AAF, and he'll be there to back him up. And that's why I kind of have a little bit more confidence in the XFL than than the AAF maybe. I think there's a bigger talent group, and there's not a huge talent gap from the NFL. I understand there is because these are former players that didn't make it in the NFL. But I don't think there's as big a gap as, let's say, the first iteration of the XFL was way back in 2001. The Houston Roughnecks are actually one of the, I was looking up like power rankings for the 8 teams. They're up there with the Dallas Renegades as one of the more favorited teams to win it all. But yeah, Junes Jones, formerly from Hawaii, he was around during the Colt Brennan era where they were slinging it all over the place. And he has newly crowned quarterback, as I mentioned before, P.J. Walker there. And they're running the Roughneck offense with Connor Cook as the backup. And so that was probably the most competitive quarterback battle was Connor Cook from Michigan State. I know him too well because we're Husker and Hawkeye fans, so we know about that. It was back and forth between him and PJ. So if PJ doesn't live up to expectations, you could see Connor Cook in that game. I feel like this is going to be one of the more offensive games of the first week, just because there's a lot of talent on both sides, both offenses. The Roughnecks are favored at 3.5. I don't know. I might take the Wildcats in that one because I don't know if they're going to win by 4 points. But again, it's such a wacky league with points. I don't know how that's going to work. Moving on to Sunday. First game is Sunday. The game that will have my most attention this weekend. The Tampa Bay Vipers at the New York Guardians. We'll see how this works out for Tampa because some people have them a lower tier team. I don't agree with it because they have former CFL and Bears coach Mark Trestman. I know he wasn't the best in the NFL, but I've said before I hope we get the CFL version of Mark Trestman where he won a lot of championships. And he has Aaron Murray as his quarterback. And Aaron Murray, before he was No, he was post Matt Stafford. Yeah, he was after Matt Stafford. So if Matt Stafford didn't come before him and break all these records for Georgia, he probably would have because he had a great season. But then this one might actually have a lot of points too because on the flip side of that, the New York Guardians have Matt McGloin from Penn State as their quarterback in a few games where he played for the Raiders. He's going to take over the Guardians offense. He's got a coach that has had 4 decades of pro football coaching experience. So this should be a tight one. Tampa Bay is favored -1.5 over the Guardians. I don't want to be a homer, but I'm taking the Vipers. Are you going to pick a team after week 1?
Yeah, St. Louis. I mean, that's probably who I'm going to be
Cardinals,
cheering for.
yeah,
I like the Cardinals. So.
You see, unlike me, you're kind of spread out because you have the Cardinals, you got the
bit.
Packers, you got the Heat. You're kind of spread. I'm like Buccaneers, Rays, Vipers, Lightning, all in one place. And then finally, the Seattle. It's been a long day. St. Louis Battlehawks taking on the Dallas Renegades, and the Dallas Renegades are the favorite right now to win the XFL championship. You'd be surprised by this. Hawkeye legend Chuck Long is running the offense, his offensive coordinator for the St. Louis Battlehawks. He'll have Jordan Tamu as his quarterback in a backfield that includes Christine Michael and Matt Jones from Texas A&M and Florida, respectively. And this will be one of the better backfields in the XFL. So I see them more as a running team. And as I mentioned, the Renegades are league favorites among many XFL sites. And I got to say, as I said last week, I want to say thank you to XFL News Hub for my stories from around the league. They're a great site. They have a great app. And I'm pretty sure one of the writers that writes for them follows me, or at the very least, he liked one of my tweets, a couple of my tweets. The XFL is building as like a legit fan community on the internet. It's amazing. But Landry Jones is questionable to play, so we'll see if Bob Stoops will actually be reunited with Landry Jones for Game 1. If he's not ready to go, they'll have Eric Dungy, who surprisingly just ended his career with Syracuse last season. So I was surprised they got a quarterback that young, like right out of college playing for the XFL. Because most of these guys, they've been out of the game for a few years. So that's surprising. So questionable Landry Jones, so Eric Dungy could be the starter. But despite all that, I still like Dallas's chances. I think they are one of the better teams in the league. They're favored by 7 points. If I'm taking the bets, I'll do that. You know what? Forget Paul and his Fab Five. Let's do Jake's SFL 4 team thing. I got nothing. I don't have a creative name, but I do have a creative name for our latest web series that's going to be going up on the Loud and Opinionated YouTube channel and Loud Sports Facebook page. That is the XFL Foreplay. I'll have that name as long as I don't get in trouble for it. But I made a logo for it because Paul was like, hey, mate, the original logo looked too much like the regular one. But XFL Foreplay will air Monday, February 10th on the places that I mentioned, Loud Opinion's YouTube channel and the Loud Sports Facebook page. It'll be covering all 4 games over the weekend. It's going to run all season long, all the way until the XFL championship game in April. And I'm kind of working out something there for the championship game. See what we can do. And with that, I want to give you one more thing. I said at the top, and I'll say it at the bottom. Countdown to kickoff for the XFL. 2 days, people. Are you going to watch the games?
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching some of them.
I need you to watch them. All right, because I'm trying to be the unofficial XFL fan ambassador. All right, I'm giving myself the name of XFL Xpert, unofficial fan ambassador. I'm telling every person I know and every person that listens to this podcast, watch the XFL. I want springtime football.
Check it out.
What's wrong with year-round football?
Absolutely nothing.
Don't you want the drought to only be 5 months instead of 7? My God, we do sit through 7 months without football, don't we? Or 6 months because August is preseason, but nobody watches preseason.
Nobody watches the preseason.
Except for Paul. I think Paul mentioned it one time, and I'm like, loser.